What's up, Addicts? I'm Michael,
And I'm Josh.
and today we're doing a review of Danmachi, Volume 11. I gotta get closer to the screen for no reason. But yeah, this volume is the last volume released in English. I think it
In the
came out
US.
in May, I believe, May
You
or
would know
June.
more.
I don't know. Yeah, so we're actually caught up. We're up to date. In Japan, they have two more volumes, and I think Volume 12 comes out October 30th in English, with English official English translation.
Official.
Anyway, so in this volume you have pretty much it's the continuation of the arc between Volume 9 and Volume 10, and then this is the Volume 11. We have pretty much all the same characters. I don't think there's really any new characters. You may say more of Ganesha's familia in this one highlighted
Yeah,
a little
more.
bit. And then
I
I
guess
think that's they're in Volume 10 too.
yeah. The only new character I can think of is the little group of adventurers that was introed in the prelude volume.
Yeah.
Whatever. And they're not really important at all. But going over the plot, I'm gonna keep it really simple because overall in this volume, it's a pretty simple story. The Xenos are trapped underground still, and they're trying to make it back to the dungeon. And so Fells gets in contact with Hestia Familia, which they, finally put their feet in the ground. Well, I mean, they've already been doing that, but they actually make up their mind that they don't really care if they're gonna get exposed or not. They're gonna help them, but they're still gonna try to do it as quietly as possible so they can, not draw attention everywhere. So, in essence, Hestia Familia is helping the Xenos get back to the dungeon, and they're going to go to the second dungeon entrance in Delatus Street. I think that's how you say it.
I don't know.
And the people standing in their way is not only everybody, but at the center of it is Loki Familia, which we all know pretty OP. And that's basically what all happens through the whole volume. There's a couple other things that happens towards the end that are maybe that happen after that, but we won't go over that here because it's pretty great.
Yeah, that would get into spoilers. And personally, when I think Josh can agree with me on that, the ending as far as the final battle, not knowing that's happening, when you finally figure out what it is, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think if you've been paying attention to some of the ground laying that they've been, giving to that certain character that he fights, and paying attention to exactly his motives, the fight comes as more of a like, oh, it's actually happening instead of like, oh, this is happening. Like, this is what now?
What is happening?
But it's still really great.
Yeah, I think before we get into our favorite moments, I just want to say this is probably one of the volumes, since it is the end of an arc, it's also kind of includes a lot of elements from other arcs. So I think it's kind of a culmination of a lot of the side stories. You have some even side characters that you haven't seen in like 2 or 3 books. They get like little 2 or 3 page description of like what happened to them during this time.
And it's insane because even if they're not interacting in like a defensive or offensive way, they still put it in there believably. Like for instance, like it's not that much of it's like a very minor thing, but we get to see the kids from the orphanage, and we really only see them as just reacting to the crowd, like what's going on. And even though that's not necessarily important, it's still really nice to see them, implementing all the characters that they introduced and giving them, some sort of spotlight just to, again, sell that all these characters are living in the same place. And, even though they're not necessarily pointing, they do connect in a way, which is really cool.
Yeah, this book really makes you understand like what it is to live in the city, how Bell's actions affect the life in the city, and why he is a hero or a villain or whatever the world sees him as.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Do you want to start off with some of your favorite moments, Michael?
Yeah, I don't want to take all of them. So I'll leave one specifically for you to talk about since it's your guy. But I really liked Lily in this volume. Her basically their plan is super solid. I really like how they all came together and had a role to play. Even Harrowheim's got a pretty good role in this one.
Yep. She don't back down for
no
no one,
no,
especially when it comes to her and her child.
Yeah, exactly. You have some of the individuals, the higher up adventurers. You get to see them interact with the Loki Familia, and that's pretty cool. The other thing that I really liked, and again, we're going to stay spoilers free as best we can, is the role of Hermes in this volume. You really get to see what makes him tick, what his motivations are, and you know, I think moving forward, it kind of will transform his character. And you get some of the Freya Familia as well, and their role in this is pretty cool as well. So.
Yeah, Freya's involvement is, because we get a hint of it at the beginning of the volume, and you're not really, like, you expect it to be coming, but you're not really sure to what extent because it isn't going to their plan. And the way that they come in towards the end, I really did like, as well as, like we said, with all the characters in the story coming together, it was nice seeing, like almost like a free-for-all grudge match. I mean, that's not necessarily what happens, but I mean, it's kind of interesting to see them all going at it and picking sides, and that's something I really did enjoy. Like Michael said, Lily has a very important role in this volume, and she serves it kind of similarly to how she has in the past in these kind of situations. And the one in particular that I really like that I'm going to say it very vague here is her interaction with forgetting his name. What's his name? From Finn. Yes. Yeah. The way her story kind of connects to his and calls back to their prior engagement is pretty interesting, and I like it is a pretty funny moment, but it serves really well to the plot and how they're dealing with the situation. Also, I think we're not going to talk about it, but the one thing I know Michael really liked, and I actually was really surprised that just how big a scale it was the final fight, and it's really good. That's all I'll say.
You want to talk about your boy, Welf?
Yeah, there's a plan that they come up with, and it's mostly like Welf's plan, and I just think it's like, it speaks to like how far he's willing to go, not only for siding with them, but also for their safety. Because even though I guess he's considered more of the hot-headed one of the Familia, he's still very calculating, and he brings some elements, maybe some tools, I should say, that
that's a good word,
are pretty helpful. And just seeing all of his interactions is pretty cool. Whether it be with the Familia and how he helps with his side of the battle, but then also his interactions with his old Familia in this.
Yeah, and I really liked one of the things that's always been really great about the Danmachi franchise, especially the books moving on past the anime, is Bell is always an underdog, and he's always facing people that could destroy him. And even in his own Familia, I think this book specifically addressed that, yes, he's the strongest level, but is he the strongest or most useful person in this Familia?
Yeah.
You really don't know. I'm not going to be more specific with that, but Welf's pretty strong. Lily's pretty important. And
I think it's like one of those things where it's not necessarily like who's stronger, it's just that they're strongest in their own field. Like you got Mikado, who's more of like the stealthy, ninja, like we've seen her in other volumes. I mean, this isn't in spoilers for like this because it's all harking back to the other one. We've seen, Lily be more of a strategist, maybe, espionage elements. And then we've seen, Welf be more of like a supporter in terms of what he can bring to the fight of, hand out to people. So they all have their own strengths in it, and they play off to be like, one badass opponent,
I think, this is kind of speculation, and, you get it in volume 10, but I think in this specific volume, you get insight on how the Loki Familia works, and I think it's going to be interesting if Finn ever comes into conflict with them again, since now that he knows, more about, what their strategy is. I think he could be a really awesome antagonist in upcoming volumes.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. Well, we might talk more about the thing I was thinking of in speculation because that doesn't really belong here. But yeah, overall, really liked it. There's just so much stuff going on that we can't really talk about much without it being too spoilery. There is an interaction with between Eyes and Bell, and goes across different boards, so it doesn't just mean it's one type of interaction. But especially, we get to see their shared ideals, and we get to see, just how that, coincides with their, conflict that's going on. And it's not necessary, and we get to kind of peek in that, it's not necessarily just family against family. I'm not doing this just because it's my familia, but, also there's some personal aspects to it. And it's kind of nice to see that, especially when Eyes is, I don't want to say like uninteresting, but she's, and definitely, looking at other characters, I, prefer seeing other characters because we haven't had a whole lot of time with her. And since the author doesn't really express, her character a lot,
her emotions,
yeah,
her thinking.
It's, I don't know. It's like one of those things where it's like you kind of accept it, but I don't necessarily know if that's my favorite scenes. But still pretty good seeing just how that form of the story resolves, and also I guess the only other thing I'll just say is Ween is
pretty hype.
Yeah, she's so adorable. She's like the most likable monster, She can't.
Yeah.
Because I guess you could say she's the most human monster out of all of them, I mean, of course, we got like Leto and stuff like that, where they want to do everything they can to help their human allies, but Wing's a little bit different in the sense that she grew up with the humans, and Belle and stuff like that, than she did with her, monster kin, and so you get to see a little bit that played out more. And all I'll say about Hermes is I saw it coming and you're a dick. That's all I'll say. But we're actually doing really good on time. So do you want to do our rating / recommendation?
Yeah. We don't have to make this a 25-minute video.
Yeah.
So we're going back forth on rating.
It's finally finalized now, though.
Yes. And even in this one, I'm like, is it I'm going to go with FFA for this one. Boom, the graphic. Because I really like the story. It's probably the closest I've been to giving something a 10. Or a pure ecstasy rating. It's really good. I like the final fight. I like the twist, or you get to see what happens with Hermes and what his goals are. I like that. I like the role of the Freya Familia. I think the only thing that I could criticize that kind of didn't make it a 10 is they kind of reset a lot of the relationships moving back forward, and kind of how they resolved the interaction with Eyes and Belle, which probably we'll see more in the next volume. I don't know. I didn't think that was like very realistic, but maybe Belle's just such a good person that it is. I don't know. I mean, I don't know, but that was probably the only thing that kept it away from being a 10, because it's probably my favorite volume, alongside with volume 10 that we've reviewed.
Yeah, and the last volume that we did, that's still my favorite volume. I think everything that's presented in that volume is amazing, which is why I have to give this one more of a high tier. Gotta have it. There's just some elements, like Michael said, the way like the world is, I guess you could say, kind of reset, or relationships are reset. It's something that I mean, I'm glad looking on to what they're going to do next, because it brings up a lot more options than if they would have done a different aspect. But at the same time, I don't really know if it's very believable, which I know ironic when there's monsters in the story. But there's just several things, interactions that towards the end that I'm kind of like, not sure if I like that. But overall, still really good. And this is definitely still best arc of the series, I would say. And I thought it had a really good ending to that.
I think Welf was the most awesome in this volume.
Yeah, he definitely brings a lot to the table in terms of just how they can fight.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see going forward how their familia progresses. If they're going to, actually, bring some power-ups to the familia members, or if they're going to use other tools to kind of counteract that power gap. So I'm really looking forward to that to see. We do know what the next volume is going to be, like a short premise, but we can go over that in a speculation video. I think that's all we got to say about this volume. So just stay tuned for other content. We got another light novel review coming on a different series, as well as some video game stuff. And if you want, you can go check out our other accounts. Follow us on social media and SoundCloud, as we have a podcast called Intervention Prevention. It comes out every week, Sunday or Monday. You depends on what time zone you're in. But anyway, guys, we'll see you next time. Later, Addicts.
Later.